And now on to Joy Wilson and Joy the baker. So I just want to check in. How many of you have made at least one of Joy's recipes? You can raise your hand. Perfect. Great. Then you know, as I do, that Joy's baked goods are pretty sweet in all senses of the world. There's pie, there's caramel, there's butter, there's ice cream, and her new book is full of really amazing recipes. What I love about this book is that the impact from the recipes is way outsized to the amount of effort that you have to put in. Like, some of the things are straightforward and easy to make, and then the results are totally mind-blowingly awesome, and it's like you spent 15 days in the kitchen creating a perfect thing. So that's kind of my favorite way to bake. So things like dark chocolate, pistachio, and smoked sea salt cookies, butterscotch ice cream pie with thyme marshmallow meringue, strawberry cheesecake ice cream, chocolate peanut butter pretzel layer cake on the cover, and pumpkin pie with pecan praline topping. So please join me to welcome Joy Wilson.
Hi. Woo-wee. This is fun already. Okay, I am Joy. I'm so glad you're all here. Here's what's going to happen today. We make an agreement when I stand up here and you sit down there. The agreement is that you have to tell me if my hair looks crazy or if I have anything in my teeth, because this is hard and that's easy. So today we're going to you're going to watch me make a pumpkin pie with pecan praline topping, and it's one of my very favorite recipes in the book. And it's right here. It's beautiful. It's amazing. You get to eat it later. Right now you have to watch me make it. But I want this to feel casual and easy and fun. And so I encourage you to ask me any kinds of questions as I'm making the pie, about the book, about my cat, about New Orleans, anything you want. This is easy and breezy and fun. Are we good? Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I think that if I do things over here, you'll be able to see. That's my hope. So here we go. How many of you are pie crust making experts? Okay, wow, yes, okay. Maybe you could come up here and help me out. Pie crust is one of those really intimidating parts of baking, and so I hope to show you some tips and make it feel really easy. In the cookbook, I talk about making pie crust by hand, and I do that in a large bowl with cold buttermilk, and I work my hands with it. And I think it's really important to know how to make pie crust by hand, because it means you can make pie crust absolutely anywhere. But today I want to show you how to make it in this food processor, because KitchenAid was lovely enough to give us a bunch of food processors. And it's a really wonderful way to make pie crust that's also pretty approachable and easy. So my pie crust is flour. We're going to throw this in the food processor. I'm not wearing an apron, so this is going to get pretty ugly. But they did tell me there is a fire extinguisher up here, so this could get really exciting. What could go wrong? Only like everything. We're going to add, okay, so we're good. That's sugar. And then this is salt. I almost swore. No big deal. It's called real life. So what I'm going to do is just get this and then maybe put it in here.
Your hair smells great, Joy.
Thank you. Cool. See? You can stay. You get to stay here. All right. This happens to me actually all the time in the kitchen, so get used to it. No big deal. I'm doing this in the food processor because pie crust is all about temperature, and the temperature we want is cold. There is definitely a science when it comes to making pie crust, and that is we use cold butter because butter is made up of delicious fats and water. And we want the cold pie crust to hit a hot oven. And what happens when cold pie crust goes into a hot oven is that the water inside of the butter evaporates very quickly. And that is the science that creates really flaky pie crust. So I want to try to keep this butter that I'm incorporating into the pie crust as cold as possible. Food processor is great for that because you're not handling the pie crust with your warm fingers. Now all we have to do is figure out how to get the lid on, and then we're going to be good. Okay, don't worry. I work here. Okay, got it. Frozen butter is great. Frozen butter is especially great if you're using a food processor because the food processor can break frozen butter down better than your fingers can. When you're breaking frozen butter down with your fingers, you have to warm it even to manipulate it. Okay, so I'm just going to pulse this. I'm not trying to fully incorporate the dough in the food processor. I'm just trying to break the butter down and coat the flour in fat. This food processor is pretty quiet, which is great. Okay, I'm going to check this. I know you can't see, but I'll show you when it starts to get important. Just trust me. I'm looking for butter pieces that are some the size of peas and some the size of oat flakes. I say that on my blog a lot. Okay, I think this is good. There's no overhead mirror, but maybe we can you? No, you can't. Don't worry. We'll work it out. I'm going to show you what this looks like. Can you see the butter bits? Good. This is exactly the size we want. This bowl's a little small, but that's my bad for not asking for a larger one. So I take the pie crust out of the food processor and incorporate the rest of the ingredients, which is just the buttermilk, in a bowl. This bowl's a little small, but really I can make anything work. Buttermilk. I make a well in the center and add buttermilk. I like to use buttermilk instead of cold water because I really like the texture. It's much more velvety than water. And I incorporate the flour into the buttermilk by just sort of nudging the ingredients together. And it's going to be a pretty shaggy consistency. It's not going to come together in the bowl. Do you see how shaggy it is? This is the part where a lot of people are like, I'm doing it wrong, I'm freaking out, I'm adding more buttermilk, but that's not necessary just yet. I think most things should happen on the counter. I just think that that's where real baking starts. Can you see me if I'm standing like this? Okay. Can you see me? Maybe not so much. Okay. This is fun so far. I feel good about this. I think my hair's okay. I think we're good. Okay, so I'm going to turn this into pie crust, even though it just looks like a shaggy mess right now. I want to knead it together, but when I say knead, I'm not talking about like the heel of my hand like you would knead a yeasted dough. That's too much pressure for this delicate pie crust. I want to use the sides of my hand to sort of coax the crust together. And as I do this, I'm trying to make sure that all of the flour bits are moistened by the buttermilk and the butter. And I'm also not afraid to add more liquid, more buttermilk if I need to. Because different environments, New Orleans, for example, is super damp. So I sometimes need less buttermilk, but I don't know, we'll see. So you can see it's starting to come together, but there's still some shaggy bits. I'm going to keep going. This usually takes me about 2 minutes or so to bring the dough together. I don't want to overwork the butter too much. Yes, this is working. This is exciting. I did this in Philadelphia, and it was almost a disaster.
I have a question.
Hey. Oh, you get a running mic.
Are you a hand model?
This is my best friend, Tracy. She is an instigator, so. Yes, I am. Yeah. I mean, they're pretty fantastic. Okay, so as I'm kneading this together, I see that the top is pretty like well formed as a crust, but there's all these bits on the bottom that are stressing me out. Not to worry. Just bring them in. You have to be the boss of your pie crust. I had a really nice pastry teacher once tell me that ingredients can smell your fear. Right? This is our pie crust. So it's not perfectly smooth on the top, and you can you tell that it's marbled with butter? This is exactly perfect. There are some deep cracks in it, but this is going to get wrapped in saran wrap and allowed to rest in the refrigerator for at least an hour, and that is absolutely essential when you're making a pie crust because the butter needs to re-chill and the moisture from the buttermilk needs to distribute throughout the flour. If you were to roll this out now, it would be World War III. It would be horrible. So the resting time is essential. But this is our pie crust. I made it look easy, but you can too. Does anyone have any questions about that? Yeah.
Do you ever add salt?
I added salt. Well,
you did?
I spilled most of everything on the counter, but I added salt.
Does it matter if it's low-fat buttermilk or full-fat buttermilk?
I think the most widely available is the low-fat buttermilk, so I use that. Yeah. Full-fat anything is always, preferable, but.
Hi, I'm back here, over here.
Oh, hi.
Hi. So on your last comment, I'm going to be baking lots of Thanksgiving desserts in Florida.
Okay.
Last year, I had a pie crust disaster because it was too warm, and there was cream cheese in the pie crust, and the pecan pie filling came all out of the pie crust in a springform pan. And
oh, no. Oh,
the whole thing.
Everything went wrong.
Yeah. So other than like keeping the ingredient, the butter cold and letting it rest, do you have any other humid, warm weather tips?
Keeping the pie crust cold is everything. Will be everything for you. So you have to stop at nothing to keep it cold, because that's it. That's all. It's funny because I think the fewer the ingredients in a baked good, the harder it is to get right. So there aren't many ingredients in pie crust, so you do have to be pretty precise with it. And when things need to be cold, they need to be cold. So you can always stop what you're doing and put the mixture back into the refrigerator. That's what I do. Instead of fighting it, just put it in the refrigerator and then have a glass of wine.
Next question over here.
Do you roll the dough out straight from the refrigerator?
I do roll the dough out straight from the refrigerator. That's the refrigerator that's usually like 40 to 42 degrees.
Right, but isn't it a little hard to roll it out?
Well, it's not hard to roll out. It is. I'll show you. I think our pie crust is out of the refrigerator. Maybe it'll be out for 15 minutes or so. But as you're working the dough, it gets warmer. So you want to start at a pretty cold place. Yeah.
One of your recipes for crust added apple cider vinegar, and I was just curious what that does to the crust.
Well, I like the acid element to just brighten up the crust. I don't think that it necessarily makes it flakier, but I just like I like to mimic a buttermilk type tang.
Just a quick question about the butter. Do you have two questions. Do you have a feeling about one type of butter over another? Some people really swear by Pulagora, for example, and then a lot of pie crust recipes I've used have like a mix of shortening and butter. So
Sure.
you're obviously an all butter girl, so I just thought I'd ask about that.
Well, I really like butter because I feel like if I'm going to add fat to something, I want to know that it tastes good. And shortening tastes like it's horrible. It's sinful to me. It's just why. So I think that butter is important. The brand of butter, I don't have a lot of allegiance to. I just want to know that it has to be unsalted and not like 50 cents for a half a pound. You know, that's a red flag. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Okay. Look at this. It's like just magical things are happening under this table. So great. So we're making a pumpkin pie and a mess. So pumpkin pie is pretty simple, right? You guys have made pumpkin pie. You stir the pumpkin together with the sugar and the other stuff, being spices, and that's it. But I have a trick. Whoa, okay. Baking is mostly about tricks. You want to try to get the most flavor out of the least effort. At least that's what I'm doing. Pumpkin puree. This is the canned stuff because, come on, like, right? You can roast your own pumpkin. You would be a better person than me, and I would respect you. But I just use canned pumpkin because it's simple. It's simple. I'm heating it up in a saucepan with sugars. Can you see me? Oh, you can't see in here. Gets mad if you lift it. Cool. All of our spices are going in here. We have cinnamon, allspice, ginger, and nutmeg, cloves, and this other cardamom thing. Just empty your spice rack into the pie filling. Success. So I like to heat my pumpkin pie filling before it goes into the pie shell and into the oven for 2 reasons that I feel like are pretty genius. First of all, by heating this step of puree, we're allowing some of the water in the pumpkin puree to evaporate a bit, which will intensify the pumpkin flavor. And we're also allowing the spices to heat up and allowing those flavors to really bloom and meld together before they go into the pie. And also it makes your house smell really good. Does that make sense? And it's such an easy step. And you can do this days before Thanksgiving. And actually you can mix the whole filling together and allow it to rest in the refrigerator, and it'll just taste even better the more it sits. So that's working. Let's add the vanilla too, because we're just living on the edge. Can you smell this? Don't worry. Everything is barely under control, but under control. So I just let this simmer down for about 5 minutes, and it has added a lovely amount of flavor. It's as exciting as you might think it would be to look in here. But you know, I add a crap ton of heavy cream. It's an official measurement. And I should whisk my eggs before they go into the filling. Yes, I should do that. I will use this bowl. Should we talk about cracking eggs? Yeah. Just for a minute. Just for about 30 seconds. Large eggs always, because you want to know how much liquid and protein is in your egg. I used to crack my eggs on the side of a bowl like this, like normal people. No, that's not the way we should do things. Now I know to crack my eggs on a flat surface. That will ensure that I'm not shoving eggshell shards up into my egg just before I want to crack it. That's what happens when you crack eggs on the side of the bowl. You're just shoving egg shards in there, which is not ideal. Oh no, there's an egg in there. See? You see? I knew this would happen. I always use an eggshell to fish out the egg shard. It seems like eggs are attracted to the other eggs. If you stick your finger in there, it's like days. You know that's true. I whisk this up, and I want to make sure that the pumpkin filling isn't too warm before I add the eggs. That's why I add the cream first. You don't want to make scrambled eggs in your pumpkin pie filling. No one will like you. Okay. This is our filling. That's it. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Are the eggs room temperature, or are they cold out of the fridge?
Well, the eggs can be however they are, because this is a pretty malleable filling. Because this can come from the refrigerator into a pie shell and go straight into the oven, and it's okay. So it doesn't matter the temperature of the eggs. That's a good question.
Can you do the same thing with sweet potatoes?
Heck yeah.
Okay, good. That's what I want to know.
Yes. My dad makes the best sweet potato pie in the world, actually. You know that to be true. My aunt and uncle are here, and they've had a lot of pies. So to my dad's sweet potato pie, he adds coriander. Coriander, which is usually a savory spice. It's a cilantro seed. It's a hit, let me tell you. That's our pumpkin pie filling. Yes.
Question over here. We have another question.
Yeah. Yes, of course. The best way for me to show you that would be, is this the best way? Or is towards the mirror. Is that good? Yeah.
More.
Ooh. Ah! Shit. I'm so sorry. You should have asked for a professional.
One more question over here.
Yeah,
Hi, Joy.
Hi.
Normally, when I made pumpkin pie in the past, I use condensed milk. But
Sure.
is there a difference between that and heavy cream?
There is a difference between condensed milk and heavy cream, yes. And also, if you want to see the consistency, maybe after you can come and stir and feel the thing instead of seeing me spill it all over the counter. So condensed milk is the canned milk. Sweetened condensed milk? Oh gosh, yeah, that's so sweet.
Or I think it was
Evaporated milk? Yeah. Evaporated milk is good for baking, but I really like, some people add melted butter to their pumpkin pie filling, which adds a nice layer of like luscious fat. But instead of layering butter with evaporated milk, I think heavy cream is a nice mix of the two of those. Lots of fat with that nice round creaminess. You know, heavy cream. It's the answer to a lot of things. Okay, don't look at me. Look away. Okay, we're good. Just doing all these things. I'm going to show you how to roll out pie crust, which can feel intimidating, but I believe in us. Okay. All right, I have two pie crusts, right? Sames. Okay, this pie crust feels a little bit colder. So I'm going to start with this. You can see, I hope you can see, nice marbling. Yes, yeah, it's perfect. And it's chilled. Do you want to come up and feel how cold it is? Okay, you believe me. When I roll out pie crust, okay, there's a few things that have to happen. First, you have to prepare yourself mentally. It is a challenge. You can't psych yourself out. I make sure my counter is nice and clean because I don't want anything mysterious to stick to the pie crust. And also, dough, if you have any miscellaneous dough on the counter, dough sticks to dough. So you want to clean it thoroughly and give yourself enough room. You don't have to roll out pie crust in a circle this big. Give yourself a nice area to roll the crust out. That might even mean going to your dining room table and deciding to do it there. Don't confine yourself to your kitchen counter. Okay, there's this guy, rolling pin. I place the dough in the center of my floured madness, and I lightly flour everything I'm working with. And I don't think, and I know that I can't, roll this pie crust out in one swift roll. It's a relationship. We're going to be here for about 5 minutes. So I start in the center of the dough, and with an even pressure, I just lightly rock back and forth. And I rotate the dough and do the same thing. Rotate the dough just a bit. Maybe go at it diagonally. Rotate again. Rotating the dough is pretty essential to rolling out a pie crust because it means that you know exactly where your dough is. There's nothing worse than rolling out an entire pie crust and then realizing that it's all completely stuck to the counter. So rotating it and moving it around will mean that you know that it's not sticking. So I'm just using an even pressure, moving the rolling pin around so that I have an even thickness all the way around as I'm rolling out. It's also, I did that, I didn't mean to. I made a mistake. It's also important not to continue your pressure all the way to the end of the pie crust to flatten your edges. That is a sadness. So you want to sort of bring the rolling pin to the edge and then lighten your pressure a little bit. Is anyone else nervous? I'm a little bit nervous. So I lift the pie crust up completely sometimes, and I feel the counter, and I see that there's some dough sticking here. So I like to rub it off because I don't want the dough to stick to the counter. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry. You should wear an apron. I can tell this is sticking. After about 4 minutes, depending on the temperature of your kitchen, the dough will start to warm and be harder to move around and manipulate across the counter. So you want to work deliberately. Pie crust doesn't really give you time to hem and haw about life and the reason for it. So I'm cleaning off my counter again. Setting it down. Yeah. I have a marble pastry board. My marble pastry board isn't large enough to roll out a pie crust on. I'm not super fancy. But they are nice. I just work on my dining room table usually. So this is about the thickness I want. Can you see how thick this is? About just less than 1/4 of an inch. And it's not a perfect circle. The shape I'm not too concerned about. I just want to know that it's large enough to fit my deep pie dish here, and it should be. Okay, getting the pie crust into the pie pan. I'm going to do a folding technique. Some people will place their forearms under the pie crust, but I am vain and I'm wearing a watch and bracelets. So I'm going to fold the pie crust in quarters. I can do this because the pie crust is still slightly chilled, so it's easy to work with. If it's warm, it's going to be hard to fold like this. And I put the tip of the pie crust in the center of the pie pan. And then I just unfold it. How do you feel about that? I mean, pretty good. I ripped a hole in it, don't worry. If you rip a hole in your pie crust, which is what just happened to me, that's fine. So,
Would you put it back in the fridge?
yeah, if it's too warm, I would put it back in the refrigerator. But it is hard to, if you're going to put the pie crust back in the refrigerator at this point, you might as well just hustle and put it in the pie pan. Yeah. So once the pie crust is haphazardly draped into the pie pan, I lift up the edges and press the pie crust just gently into the sides of the pan. So you want to make sure that the crust is flush with the pan so that when you put the pie filling in, it won't tear where there are any gaps. Because once it tears and the filling is in, I don't know, you should call somebody. Like your mom. Call your mom. Look at all these tools. Okay. I'm going to leave about an inch where I can around the edge of the pan. That's long enough. Oops, don't worry. Does this feel doable? I want this to feel like you can do this yourself because I believe in you. Okay, good. To finish the pie crust, I take the overhang from the edge and I fold it under. And that will create a seamless and nice and thick pie crust. Right? Also, if it's not perfect, you're doing it right. Perfect pie is for Marie Callender's. Is that real? Do they have that here? I was at King Arthur Flour in Vermont last week, and I was teaching people how to make this pie exactly. And we made 68 of them. And everyone did a great job. It's so nerve-wracking when I teach classes like that because I want everyone to succeed. Whew. Some people's pies were a little crazy. Just doing a little pinch around the edges here. It's like, how do you get this one lady? I loved her. She was like my biggest success story. But she started rolling out her pie crust in like the shape of an animal pelt. You know, like if you skin an animal like that, like crazy. It's like, how did you even teach me how to do that for other purposes? I don't know what they are, but man, that was a stressor. Here's our pie crust. So at this point, we can, oh, you guys are way too kind. At this point, you can put this back in the refrigerator, wrap it well, and it'll last for a few days. Or you can wrap it very well and put it in the freezer for pie crust times. But this will definitely need a little bit more chilling before it goes in the oven. Let's just put our... Show me how you did that lid again. Yeah. Yes. So I put my 2 fingers on the edge of the pie crust, index fingers, about a finger's width apart, right? And then I just smash my thumb through it. So it's like this. And super technical. So, best wishes. I'm sagging a little bit here.
How do you know when to pre-bake a pie crust for pies and when you just put the filling in and the pie crust in at the same time?
I think that pre-baking depends on your preference. You could pre-bake this crust, and it would have a bit of a crisper bottom crust for your pumpkin pie. So to pre-bake, you would do 400 degrees to start. Spray a piece of foil with nonstick spray, press it into your pan, and then fill it with beans or those expensive pie beads, and bake it off. Or you could not do that, which is the easier way. And you'll have a little bit of a softer bottom, but I think I like that about pumpkin pie, is a soft bottom. So pre-baking is if you like a crisper crust, or you're making a non-oven baking pie, like a banana cream, right? But I'm always trying to make things like easy for myself. And the thought of taking out the foil and the spray and the beans, then your house smells like baked beans. You know, it's like, ugh, are we really? So the moral of the story is I'm lazy, and I also like pie. So this is ready for the oven, which is exciting. Ready for the oven or for this part of the counter?
We have a question in the back.
Hey, Joy.
Hi.
Hi, Tracy, up there. So I know your pie recipe allows you to make 2 different pie crusts. So how long can you save one in the fridge, and any recommendations on like freezing? Can that happen?
I think that if you're making 1 pie crust, you might as well make like 14 or so, because it takes some work. So you should make many, at least 2. Just make 2. Well wrapped to me means 2 times in plastic wrap, and then if you're freezing it, you should also put it in a Ziploc bag. You can freeze a crust. I usually freeze them for a month. In the refrigerator, they start to get a little gray after 3 days or so. So those are my time parameters. Cool. I made a mess. Now what am I going to do? I think next we should make the praline topping for this pumpkin pie, if you'll excuse my flour mess. I like to make a praline topping. Can you see how pretty it is on this pie? Gosh, right? It's like you're doing everything right with life. It's easier than a caramel. With a caramel, we're burning the sugar to create a depth of flavor. With a praline, we're just bringing all the flavor at the start by adding brown sugar, which has a nice, of course, sweetness, but a bitter, like molasses balance as well, with butter. I'm going to turn this on, get it going. Salt and heavy cream, because we like living. Sorry if I have flour on my face. I just stir together this mixture into a melted mess. The butter will melt, coat all of the sugar. The sugar will melt. We're going to add the nuts now because we can. I'm just going to wait on the vanilla. Are they pecans? Yeah, they're pecans. You can use walnuts, but I moved to New Orleans and now everything has to be pecans. No. Listen, I have to go slow. I just said y'all the other day, and like they let me get away with it. So I have to ease in. You know, like you can't take that for granted. I went to Home Depot because I needed firewood for something, for a photo shoot, and I asked the thing about New Orleans is that I continuously embarrass myself by not being from there. So I ask questions that I think are normal, like, do you have kale? And people will be like, where are you from? Like, well, I just thought that maybe you had kale or firewood. So the lady at Home Depot didn't have firewood. She told me to go to an abandoned house and chop down a tree. So thank you. But she was so serious. But first she was like, first get a man. get a man to find an abandoned house. Oh, God, so embarrassing. So anyway, it's really cool.
Oh, is it on really low heat right now?
This is, there you are. Yes. This is on medium heat. This thing is pretty powerful. So it's on medium heat, and if all of the ingredients are together, the sugar, the heavy cream, and the butter, I don't really have to worry about it burning. Mm-hmm. If I were slow and this were over high heat and I just added the sugar, it might scorch. But medium heat with all of the ingredients together, standing here and stirring it, will create a nice boiling. Can you see this? And a nice, like, easy caramelization. So I cook this for maybe 5 to 7 minutes, and it will thicken slightly, but most of the thickening happens on top of the pie. So I'm not really trying to cook this down. I'm just trying to incorporate it. Oh. Okay. I think we're good. I'm going to add the vanilla once it's...
Why do you add the vanilla at the end?
I add the vanilla at the end because I don't want to lose the vanilla flavor to the heat. If I add it while it's still boiling away, it will, I'll lose the vanilla flavor. This beautiful pie. Yeah? Well, the difference between dark and light brown sugar is the amount of molasses. So if you want a deeper molasses bitter flavor, dark brown sugar is great. You can also add more molasses to light brown sugar and like create that depth, which I think is really nice. So I take the pie out of the oven, I let it cool to about room temperature, and then I pour this praline on top like a hero. And it's pumpkin pie, perfect for the holidays, but like it's just mega, which everything should be. I don't know where to put this. I put it here. And this will harden as it cools. I try not to put it in the refrigerator once I put the pecan praline on top because I want the praline to stay glossy. If it cools in the refrigerator, it gets a more matte look. What do you think? Right? You get to eat it. So that's our pie extravaganza and this mess. Sure.
I make a lot of pumpkin pies. Every time I cut the pie, the crust, and I'm using the evaporated milk method, not the cream, which I'll use this Thanksgiving. The crust comes away from the filling.
Sure.
What am I doing wrong?
Well, I don't think that you should think that you're doing something wrong. There might be a lot of moisture in your pie filling that's making it separate from the pie crust. So I think that perhaps heavy cream and cooking the pumpkin puree down a little bit could prevent that. I wonder if it's also a cooling issue. No, I don't think so. But once it's in the refrigerator for a while, it might separate a little bit.
I've never put it in the refrigerator.
Oh, okay.
But it still separates on me.
It might be the liquid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
So you were saying that when you make a praline, the order of ingredients and timing of adding the ingredients isn't as important?
Well, you just want to make sure that all of the ingredients are together in the pot as it melts down.
Okay.
When you make a caramel, you can't add it all at
everything.
once. You have to like
Then it would
cook
become
the sugar
a
down.
praline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Question over here.
Hi, Joy.
Hi.
What is your favorite thing to do with all of your extra pie crust scraps?
Ooh.
Any go-tos?
I'm very simple. I make like cinnamon sugar cookies out of them. So simple, but they're really good. Yeah. That's all you really need them to be.
One more question.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question about sinking pie crust because I've made
pie crust before, or dough before that, and I put it in and I pre-baked it, and then it just kind of went and like melted into a puddle.
Melted into a
and
puddle.
Is it because the dough itself was already messed up? Because like the butter, you're saying like the butter has to be like more solid, or was it already the dough, or was it the temperature at which I put the dough in the oven?
There's a lot of things that can go wrong, right?
Yeah.
So put the pie crust in the refrigerator before you put it in the oven. So that you want your pie crust and the butter in your pie crust to be cold before it goes into the oven. And that will keep the butter from melting completely, right? Into a puddle. No good. And then pie crust will naturally shrink a little bit. So to compensate for that, you can work them over the edges a bit. Oh, you can't see that. Whoa. Like over the edges like this, and it'll shrink in, but it'll still be flush to the pie pan if you have kept them over the edges a little bit. Does that make sense? Also, good luck.
Next question.
It's hard, but you can get it.
Next question on your right.
Hi. So I've heard that if you add vodka to pie crust, that it can make it more flaky.
Yeah.
Is that possible? And
probably.
Another question, what if you don't want a flaky pie crust?
What?
I
don't know who you are.
Is there like another option to that? Which I know is really weird and probably not right at all, but what would the alternative to that be?
I think the alternative to that would be to add like an egg yolk to your pie crust, sort of make it a little bit more dense. And then the vodka thing people do, but I don't know why. I don't remember why people do that.
Question over here.
Vodka evaporates the water. That sentence doesn't really make sense to me, but that's what other people have said.
Question over here.
Me again. So the metal pan, I have always, except for the springform pan disaster, I always use glass or ceramic pie pans, but totally open to why you're using a metal one.
Metal is great. Like the cheap, thin metal pie tins are my favorite because they heat very quickly. So the butter in your pie crust doesn't have a chance to like get limpy and melty as the pan heats up. Glass and ceramic take a long time to heat up in the oven, so that gives your butter a chance to just like flop around. Thin metal is the best pie tin. Yeah.
Other questions? Oh.
Question over here.
I want to ask about your recipe making process. Like, how much time do you spend baking? Do you bake like every day? And then what do you do with all of the baked goods that you make?
I make a lot of them. I make a lot. I bake maybe 4 days a week in my kitchen. And it depends on what I'm baking, how many times I make it. So a lot of the things that I make are based on proportions that I'm really familiar with. Like I know a biscuit is this much flour to this much buttermilk. I know a pie crust is this much flour to this much butter. So I don't have to do a ton of testing of those recipes because I know the proportions are right. When I am getting crazy brain and starting to think of other recipes, it takes a lot of testing. Like I'm working on a brunch book right now, and I'm trying to test this recipe for onion rings that have Guinness and espresso powder. I feel like that should be good. I make it a lot, and they're horrible. But I am not done giving up. I'm not done with it yet. Like maybe it needs more sugar, maybe it needs garlic powder. Is that? That's a terrible idea. I was like, maybe it needs cocoa powder. Worse idea. So those I've made maybe 8 times. And So that's a lot of testing. And then, so the onion rings I'll throw away because they're horrible. The other baked goods either go to my neighbors, who are great, and in my freezer, to parties. I don't know. I have too much. My freezer right now is a mess.
We're just collecting anyone who didn't hand over their little slip
yeah.
of paper. We're collecting those, and we'll keep asking Joy questions.
Hello.
Hi.
Other than your own cookbooks, what's your favorite baking cookbook out there?
Oh, my own cookbooks aren't even my favorite. That would be a red flag. I really like Dory Greenspan's cookbooks. She's just one of my favorite bakers because she is very approachable but very knowledgeable, and her recipes are super solid. She's one of my favorites.
Question right here.
So, Joy, we've talked about freezing pie crust, but have you had success in freezing whole pies?
It depends on the pie.
Okay. And then do you take it out and let it like thaw before you put it in the oven, or do you bake it directly from the freezer usually?
It's a little tricky because it depends on the pie completely. So like an apple pie, I would make the entire apple pie and freeze it unbaked, and then thaw it in the refrigerator and then bake it. A pumpkin pie like this, I don't think can be frozen. Like an unbaked pumpkin pie can't be frozen. A baked pumpkin pie can probably be frozen, but you're going to have that separation because of the condensation. So it's just like pie by pie, which is hard to say. So thank you.
Question right here.
Do you take all of your own photographs?
I do. Wow. With a camera. Yeah. Who lets me up here? Like, why do you let me say so many words? It's the worst.
Do we have some other questions? Oh, okay. I'd love to hear what some of your upcoming plans are. So, like, you have the blog and the books, and, like, what are some other things that you would like to do down the line?
That's not a stressful question at all. I have the blog and the books. I'm working on another book. And I think, I don't know, that's all. I have a podcast with my best friend Tracy, which we're doing. And I think that's it. That fills my brain.
Do you have a name of the blog?
Excuse me? Where is that?
Over here.
Oh.
One of the patrons wants to know if the blog is named something.
My blog is named Joy the Baker.
Another question.
For certain recipes, whether it's a pie or maybe a tart, sometimes you're told to prick, the crust before you either pre-bake or do the baking. So do you have a rule of thumb for pricking to make that work, or to make a better crust, I should say?
Sure. I do prick the pie if I pre-bake it to give it some room to breathe. But if I don't pre-bake a pie, and tell me if I'm answering your question, I don't prick it because I don't want to lose the filling to the pan. Does that answer your question well enough? Okay. Yeah, it's for pre-baking. So it doesn't completely bubble up. It can breathe.
Question right here.
What's your favorite thing about New Orleans so far?
My favorite thing about New Orleans? Everyone is always ready to celebrate everything. Anything. Like, I got the mail today, let's have a parade. Also, you can have a parade. The thing is, you can have a parade. It costs $250 for a police escort. You can get any sort of brass band anywhere, and then you can walk down the street as a parade. I saw a guy doing it the other day. He just had a cup of beer, and it was him. It's amazing. Amazing. I make videos of all the parades that go by my house. I send them to people. It's always.
I have a question over here.
Yeah. I don't know. There you are.
Right here. And then, so this is an open face pie, and then when you have like the closed face pie, how different does it get? Or is that where your extra pie scraps kind of went, and you like end up making the top to the pie, or?
Oh no! So a closed, a full double crust pie. That's what it's called. I would make two of the pie things that I made earlier, discs. Roll the second one out, and instead of trimming just when I put the first pie crust in, I would trim the top and bottom crusts together, fold them under together, and then crimp it.
Question right here.
Hey, Joy.
Hi.
So I know that we all know that like environment and our family and our culture really like feed into and shape how we cook, right? And like the recipes we think of. So I want to know what is the influence that New Orleans has had on your cooking so far?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out. New Orleans is really good at the one kind of food that they cook, the Creole-inspired food. The other food, not so much. Like, can I get a burrito? How about some sushi? No. So it's all really good Creole food. And so it's influenced more of my savory cooking. They use a lot of white pepper, which I think I'm allergic to. Bonus. So I'm learning a lot of things and becoming friends with locals. I've learned how to make barbecue shrimp, which isn't barbecued at all. And there's this biscuit guy in town that I'm kind of obsessed with because he makes the best biscuits in town. I'm trying to get him to come to my house and show me how to make biscuits. But he's crazy, so I don't know if I want him in my house. It's like, New Orleans is very complicated. Yeah.
I have a question. I love your top. Where is it from?
Well, thank you. It's covered in flour. It's from Anthropology. Everyone's like, yeah. I heard all of you say that. You guys are funny.
Question back here.
Hi, Joy. Can you tell me a little bit about your kitchen and what's a must-have for appliances or utensils or things like that? Can you describe maybe three things?
My kitchen is pretty simple. I don't have a lot of bells and whistles. I don't think you need a lot of bells and whistles. I have one spatula, a set of 3 bowls. I do have a KitchenAid mixer. So I think a mixer is important. It can be a hand beater too if you don't make a lot of yeasted breads. A good spatula, even just one. A good knife, I just have one. Some bowls. A food processor is pretty helpful for making all kinds of things and sauces. And other than that, I mean, I even have an electric oven. Like, I don't even have a nice gas range. So you don't need a lot to make good things. I hate my electric oven, by the way. I hate it. It's the worst.
Another question on your right.
How often do you need to like change your spices?
Oh, good question. I don't know. I try to keep my spices for no longer than 9 months to a year, and you can sort of see them die in your kitchen cupboard, and you can smell them die. Like, if they don't have that fresh smell, or if they don't smell like they used to when you bought them, I get rid of them. But you can see their color fade and sort of get dry, and that's when I say goodbye.
Any last questions before we draw the winner of the food processor?
Oh yeah, you get this nice dirty food processor. Just kidding, we'll get you a new one.
We'll wash it. All right.
Okay, no, I have a microphone on me. This is cool. I'm not looking. I can't read this.
K Okay, so the email address is HAGEWOOD.
Agewood. Well.
Great.
Now you just want
All
to
right.
food process
So I'll just grab your contact information after. All right.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thank you for coming and watching me make a pie and asking me so many thoughtful questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.